Greetings, fellow human, Missy here. And if you are considering starting therapy for your mental health, or maybe even have the first appointment booked, but you are feeling quite terrified, then I made this video just for you. There is still so much stigma and shame attached to going to therapy for your mental health. And I really hope that by sharing some of this, that might break a little bit of that stigma and, if nothing else, just help you feel a little bit less alone and afraid, because really it is life-changing and incredible if you find the right therapist. And I realize that therapy is not accessible to everybody. I know that from the volunteer work that I do here in South Africa for SADAG, for the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. So if therapy is out of your financial reach, please give them a call. Find out if you can chat to somebody. You can usually chat to a counselor, and maybe they can put you on the path to finding therapy that's within your reach, because everybody should have access to this. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So what do we do when we're physically ill or we're injured? Right, we go to the doctor. Maybe it's a hacking cough. Okay, it's bronchitis. Here's some antibiotics, here's some more medicine, maybe go for physio and you're better. Maybe it's a protruding bone. Okay, it's broken. Let's figure out how to fix that. And you go home and you're in a cast and everything is better in a couple of weeks. Maybe you have a really sore tummy and you're double over in pain. It could be appendicitis. You go to the hospital, you get it removed. There's pain meds. You go home, you feel better. What is the difference with mental health? It's just as debilitating. When it comes to mental health, there's often the mentality, well, trauma, get over it. Anxiety, get over it. Depression, you know what, get over it. Sadness, loss, take some time, but you know what, get over it. And the list goes on and on and on. And of course, this isn't the reality for everyone in those situations, but for a lot of people, that really is the case. People around you may make you feel like it's not important. They may minimize it. They may make you feel like what you are struggling with doesn't matter because they don't understand. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with seeking help from a professional when you are feeling mentally or emotionally unwell, just as you would go and seek help for your physical well-being. It's brave and it's commendable that you're trying to take care of yourself. Now, as I said before, I do realize therapy is not accessible to everybody, but if you are in the situation where you are considering therapy, but you're feeling really scared, or maybe you even have that first appointment, but that fear is just so big, like what's going to happen? What is it going to be like? I just want to share a couple of my experiences just on surface level, just so that you can they're only my experiences. I can't speak for what other people experience, but for me, the experiences have been incredibly positive and actually quite life-changing. I only have experience with psychologists. I've seen 3 throughout my life. And the first one was when I was at university. I had really been struggling with anxiety and with panic attacks, and they were getting so bad that I was actually unable to sit through my lectures. I felt so panicky sitting there. The physical symptoms of anxiety and going into a panic attack was so terrible that I started avoiding more and more things. And it was really terrifying. And going to see my first therapist, I was very, very apprehensive. I didn't know what to expect. And he was actually so calm, so confident, so understanding. He listened to me. He made me feel like what I had to say was important and valid, and that other people experienced this. And to me, I had felt completely alone at this point. This was many years ago, and we didn't have the information that we have now. We didn't have, YouTube support groups, things like that. It was very, very scary, feeling so alone and gradually isolating myself more and more and more. So he was extremely solution focused. And at that point, being a young adult, I just wanted to get on with life. I wanted to be able to cope with what was happening to me. I wanted to be able to do things again. And he helped me to understand that anxiety was in fact not going to kill me, that a panic attack would in fact not kill me. And he helped me to figure out what was going on in my body, why my body was reacting like that when, as far as I could see, there was no threat, but my body was like, there is something that is going to eat us. We are imminently going to die. And just helping me to understand that and giving me some tools to calm myself and to slowly reintegrate into my life to be able to start attending some of my lectures again. Now, I don't know if with that experience I maybe stopped therapy too early. It was quite a while ago and I actually don't remember the details, but I didn't completely get over the panic and anxiety. It still stayed there and I still avoided a lot of things, which I realize now in retrospect wasn't the best thing for me, just for my personal experience, because what started to happen is I started to avoid more and more things. But for that time of my life, I coped. I did the things that I wanted to do. I conquered the fear of panic and anxiety. And it was all thanks to this incredible therapist who sat with me and sat with this teenager who really didn't want to explore feelings and things, who just actually wanted solutions. And he was great at that. He figured out very quickly that that's what I needed. And in that moment, that is exactly what I needed. I just needed some solutions. I needed to get on with my life. So life went on for a while. And as I said, I was still avoiding things. And gradually it became this slippery slope where I started to avoid more and more things. It's not that I stopped doing things completely, but I did avoid certain situations that made me uncomfortable and slowly avoided more and more of those situations. And the panic attacks started to come back with a vengeance, and it was a different type of panic. It was very much in my body, but it was also in my mind. Panicky feelings of something terrible is going to happen, things like that. I don't want to be too triggering, so I'm not going to go into detail, but yeah, it was a different type of panic. It got so bad that at one point I did not want to leave the house. My agoraphobia was like just so extreme, and even at home I was having panic attacks multiple times a day. So I went to go and see my next therapist, and he was so empathetic, so kind, and he made me feel immediately comfortable. He had his little Scotty dog with him, usually, in his office. And for dramatic effect, I will reenact what happened at that first meeting. I can see that you're feeling very anxious. Would you like to pick up petals? Yes, please. Okay. Okay, we're going to do a mindfulness exercise now. Do you want to close your eyes? No. Okay, that's not a problem. Let's start. Okay. So that's how therapy started for me with him. And he was just so incredibly patient, as I said. He was so kind, and my personality hadn't changed since teenage me. I wanted solutions. I did not really want to talk too much about feelings and things, and he went into that a little bit, but he did respect that and really focused on trying to find me solutions that worked for my life. We did go more into the feelings. I was much older by this time. This was a couple of years ago, and working through some of that helped incredibly. We couldn't figure out where the anxiety was like originally coming from, where the roots were, but he taught me mindfulness and so many other things. And by the time I left therapy with him, I was in control of my panic attacks. For the first time in my life, I could stop a panic attack. That was earth-shattering for me. It blew my mind the first time it happened because I'd never been able to do that before. And that first time that it happened, that was me feeling like I was taking back control of my mental health. What he helped me figure out in therapy was that I was having anxiety and panic attacks about anxiety and panic attacks. So the more I was fearing the anxiety, the more I was fearing the panic attacks, the more they were coming and coming. And it was this vicious cycle of fear and panic and anxiety and fear and panic and anxiety. And as I say, he helped me to break that cycle. It was absolutely wonderful. And after that, I started to take my life back. It felt like being alive again after just living in this constant fear. It felt like being able to go out and do things again without everything being this enormous fight against panic and anxiety. That doesn't mean that I don't still experience anxiety and the occasional panic attack, but it's so different now because he helped me to realize that I am always in control. Even when things feel completely out of control, I can ride the wave. It's okay. I have the tools I need and I will be okay. And that brings us to my current therapist. Now, just for context, I have a teenager, and the December before last December, my second little girl was born. And she ended up being colicky until she was over 10 months old. It was daytime colic, so I didn't even know this was a thing, but she would sleep as well as a baby sleeps at night, you know, waking up for feeds and things, crying a little bit, nothing too bad. But the days she would wake up and she would just scream and scream and scream and scream and scream. And my mental health went downhill very quickly and very badly. So again, I'm just going to keep it at surface level. I'm not going to go into detail about that right now, but I went to go and I see this therapist online, and she is also just the most empathetic, kind human being. And she helped me to get out of that space that I was in. She started with incredibly practical stuff, just helping me to understand that I was taking on far too much, that what I was experiencing was traumatic, and that anybody would be in a terrible space having to deal with what I was dealing with every day, you know, being a mom to this wonderful but very colicky little baby, and coping with everything else that I had to do in life, all of my normal obligations, my work, my chores, everything else. It was too much. So she helped me to put a lot of things in place to practically deal with that. And slowly I came back to life, as it were, again. And currently she's helping me work through a lot of other things. We're actually getting to the feelings part now, and I feel like I'm ready for that now, you know, to help me to never get into that space again. Hopefully, nobody can guarantee that, but it would be absolutely wonderful. And I can see that happening. I can see how working through the things that we're working through, practically, but also on a deeper emotional level, is helping me with my life, with my relationships, the way that I deal with things, my confidence. Every aspect of my life feels different now. There's before and there's after, and that's how it's been with each therapist. There was before therapy and then there was after therapy, and each time I have felt like a different person, and not a better person per se, but a more peaceful person, a happier person, a person who understands themselves more and has more confidence in themselves and has more just peace. And just on a side note, my little one did outgrow the colic and is the sweetest, cutest, smartest, sassiest little thing now, and we are enjoying her tremendously. Each of the times that I have been to therapy has been life-changing. Yes, each time has been challenging, but the effort, the work that I put in, and what I got out were more than worth it. I would do it again. I'm so, so grateful for those opportunities that I had. Now, I would just like to end with a few thoughts that I have gathered over the years about therapy that I hope might be useful to you. The first one is that therapy is nothing to be ashamed of. As I said in the beginning of the video, there is stigma, there is all this shame surrounding going to therapy, but it is just like going to see the doctor if something is wrong with you. If you've broken a bone, if you have a sore tummy, if you have a really bad cough, anything, you would go to the doctor. So for your mental health, why not go and see somebody for that? You are taking care of yourself, and in doing so, you are taking care of the people around you, the people who rely on you, because without your mental health, how can you help anybody else? The next thing to remember is that your therapist is a human just like you. I know that it can seem intimidating, but remember that they are a human. They have likes, they have dislikes, they have a past, they have a future. Isn't that comforting to think about? That yes, they are this professional, they have studied, they are an expert in their field, but they're human and they have empathy and they have understanding and they see you. The next thing to remember is that your therapist might not be right for you, and that's okay. So if you start seeing a therapist and you feel that something is just not working, the first thing you can do is talk to your therapist about it, because they do understand this. Maybe they're using a specific approach because they think it's what's best for you. Maybe they're focusing very much on the feeling side, but you're a more practical person. And maybe there are reasons for that. Maybe you can come to some understanding. Maybe there is just a misunderstanding, but people are different. And as I said, your therapist is a human. People have different personalities. And maybe your personalities are just not right for each other. And if you decide that you need to move on to somebody else, that's okay. A good therapist will understand that, and a good therapist will be happy that you in the future will find somebody who's better suited to your needs and your personality. So it's okay. It's okay if it's not working out and you need to look for someone else. I've been very lucky. All three of my therapists were exactly right for me. They were exactly right for who I needed at that time. The next thing I can suggest is try to just go with what's happening in your therapy session. Try not to put too much pressure on yourself to achieve a certain thing. Just be present. Just speak what's on your mind. Say what you're thinking. Say what's bothering you. Listen carefully. And at the end of the session, this is what I do. I know a lot of people take notes during their sessions, but for me, I prefer to try and be as present as possible in the session. And then afterwards, I will immediately just go and bullet point down everything that stood out to me. And then I'll take a break from it and I will come back to it later and have a think about it, think some more about questions that the therapist asked that were left for me to think about. I'll think about things that really stood out to me and maybe even go and journal about them, write everything down that's on my mind. But as I say, I usually give myself a break before I do that. My therapist recommends take some time for yourself after the session, go and sit outside, have a cup of tea, relax for a little bit. Therapy is exhausting. It really is, but exhausting in a very healing way. Another thought that I'd like to share is not to discount the value of online therapy. Now, two of my therapists I saw in person, and the current therapist I'm seeing online. And honestly, for me, there is no difference. I know for a lot of people, they might feel like they want to be in the room with their therapist, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But for me, this time around, I really needed someone who specialized in knowing what to do with a mom with a colicky baby. I really needed that perspective and that type of empathy and those expertise. And the only place I could find that, because I do live in a small town, is online. And it has been incredible. It's been just the most wonderful experience. So don't be afraid to do online therapy. The next thing to keep in mind is that therapy is a collaborative process. That means that your therapist is not someone who's sitting there telling you what to do. Your therapist is working with you to figure out the solutions that are best for you. Therapy is not what we have sometimes seen in movies and TV shows, where it's somebody just listening to you chatter on and on and on and on, occasionally taking notes and then occasionally saying, "And how does that make you feel?" It is not like that at all. The next thing that I've learned about therapy is that people in your life may not like that you're going to therapy. This is some people may not like that you're going to therapy, and they may not like your therapist. And the reason for this is because you are probably going to start breaking some patterns that got you into therapy in the first place, and the people around you are not going to necessarily enjoy the changes. And people don't like change. And that's okay, because if you are getting pushback, and this is what my therapist taught me, it means that therapy is working and things settle again. I can tell you that things settle to be so much better than they were pre-therapy. It's okay if people don't like that you're going to therapy. You are looking after you, and at the end of the day, you are taking care of the people around you better because you are taking care of you. So you can do better for everyone around you. The last thought that I want to leave you with is that no matter what you are going through right now, things change. And I know in this moment, if things are really dark for you, it doesn't feel like they can get better, but they do. Things change, things shift, and I can't promise you when. But if nothing else, just hold on to my words. Things change. Go to therapy. Maybe things won't change after the first or the second or the third or the fifth session, but hang in there. For me personally, things started to change extremely quickly, but I can't speak for your situation. So just hold on to hope, hold on to the knowledge that things change. They can get better. Now, I would really love to know if you have had a positive therapy experience, or maybe you're starting therapy and you are feeling really, really afraid. I would love to hear about both of those in the comments below. If you found this helpful or interesting and you'd like to see more, please like and subscribe. And if you would like to work with me as your life coach, please see the description below for a link. I turn warriors into warriors. Until next time, fellow human, remember that you can do scary things, especially when there are scary things like therapy, which are so good for your mental health.